Okay, Baruch Hashem. Today's daf yomi is Menachos daf pei vav. Menachos 86. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Okay, Baruch Hashem. We're back on. All right, let us go to today's daf yomi. Okay, so we are on the bottom of Pei Hey Amabez 85b on the last line. So the Mishnah had said that you're not allowed to bring the oil for the carbon mincha from the mibeis hazavelim, from the field that needed to be fertilized, and we also said that you're not that if you brought from the oil that was the ampaktan oil, then it was kosher b'di'evet. And this impacted oil, this is the Gemara. We had said yesterday that this is what's referred to in the book of Esther as the Shemen Hamor, that it was made from olives that have not yet reached a third. And now the Gemara is going to continue this discussion. Vatanya ein meviin ampaktin, but didn't we say that you're not allowed to bring the ampaktin oil on the top of 86a? Vim heavy puzzle. So why does our Mishnah say it's kosher b'di'evet? But when we have a different price that says that if you brought it, it's disqualified. And the reason is saraf, because it's not considered oil, it's just considered saraf, meaning something that is basically something that burns, but it's not considered oil. So Amar Rav Yosef Kasha, Harab Chia, Harab Shum Bar Rebbe. So there's two different approaches. One is Rebbe Chia, one is Rebbe Shimon Bar Rebbe. So the Rebbe Chia Zarikle, the Rebbe Chia would throw out this oil. He wouldn't use it. He would throw out this pumpkin oil. He wouldn't eat it, and he wouldn't use it. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Rebbe, who was very rich, mitabel bay, he would actually dip his food in it. And so, ironically, the one who was wealthy would use it, and the one who wasn't wealthy would throw it out. The simaneich. And the way to remember who did what is ashirim mekamtzin, that those who are wealthy are actually more frugal sometimes. Not always the case, but sometimes they're more frugal. And Rebbe was a Nasi, so Rebbe Shimon, his son, was actually very frugal with the oil. Shisha chadashim b'shemen amor. So it says in the pasuk in the book of Esther that women, when they were getting ready to meet Achashverosh, that they spent 6 months with the shemen amor. My shemen amor. What is this shemen amor? Rapuna barachia amar satachta. It's this oil that's called satachta. Usually translated as balsamic oil, but Rabbi Yirmiyah Baraba Amar Shemen Zayis. This is the same thing as that oil we've been discussing, which is this oil that has not yet grown a third, the olives that have not yet grown a third of the oil they produce. And indeed, Tanya Rabbi Huda Omer Ampaktin Shemen Zayis, that this ampaktin is oil that has not yet grown a third, and lama sachanoto. So why do they anoint themselves in it? What's the advantage of it? Shemat meishir esaseyar uma'adin esabasar. It removes the hair and makes the flesh soft. Ein meviin min agargarin shenash b'mayim. You're not allowed to use for oil for the korban mincha the olives that were soaked in water. Tana Rabbanon shemen zayis kavush shalok or sharoy v'shal shemarim v'shal reach ra lo yavi. That if the olives were pickled or boiled or soaked in water, or the dregs of the olives, or from a bad odor, you can't bring them as a korban mincha. And if you brought such oil, possible. By Rabba asked, let's say you consecrated it for the temple to bring as a korban. Will you get lashes on it? Mishum balmum, because you're not allowed to bring an animal that has a blemish. Do we say kivan de pasil, since it's disqualified, it's kabalmum dummy. We view it as though it has a blemished animal. Oh, Dilma, or do we say Ein Balmum Ella Bebehema? Or do we say a blemished animal is only an animal and not disqualified oil? So the Gemara says, take it. We leave this question unresolved. Tanya. So now we're up to the Mishnah. Shlosha Zaysimheim. So there are three types of there are three times, Rashi says, three times where the olives were harvested. Ubahen Shlosha Shemanim. And each time that you harvest the oil, there are three types of oils that come out of the olives. So altogether, there's going to be considered 9 levels of olive oil, three different seasons, and each time there are three different types of olives. So we'll see what it is in our Mishnah. Harishon, the first one is Hazayis Harishon, the first olive oil that was harvested, the first olive that was harvested, that is migargaro, that you berosh hazayis. That's when you harvest the basically the ripest olives that are on the top of the tree. The kotesh, and then you crush them. And after you do that, venosa and tochasal, you put them into the basket, and basically the oil is just flowing out of them, and then it falls right into the utensil that's underneath. Yehuda Omer Sivivos Sal, that you don't put it onto the basket itself, but you put it around the basket, and basically, and it goes on a slant into the into the bottom basket, and that's how it gets refined. And Zer Rishon, this was going to be considered the first of the harvest, and this is the best of the olives. Then afterwards, Chazar V'Toin, the second olives that you harvest, those you have to press Bekor with a beam. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ba'avanim, he says that you press them with stones. And Zet Sheni, this is going to be considered the second of the second best olives. Chazar V'Tachan V'Ta'an. And then afterwards, you are going to take out these olives and you grind them up V'Ta'an, and then you press them, and zeshlishi. So the first one, and that's the third step. So the first one is you just put them in and the oil flows. The second one, you have to press them with a beam or a stone, depending on the approach. The third approach, you actually have to grind them and press them, and that's the third olives. Harishon, the first of the olive oil, that's the menorah. That you're going to use for the menorah. V'ashara menachos, and the others you're going to use for the carbon mincha. What is the second time that you gather the oils? The second harvest, Hasheni migargaro beroshagag. So the second olive oil harvest is that you're not gathering it from in the fields, but you're gathering it from the olives, not that reach all the way to the top of the tree, but the ones that reach the top of your roof. Meaning to say, they're harvesting later. The sun gets them later than the first ones because they're a little bit lower down on the tree. The kotesh, and you press them and nosan toch asal, you put them in the basket. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Svivos asal. Rabbi Yehuda says around the basket, not on the bottom of the basket, but around the basket, and they fall down. Zer Rishon, this is the best. The Toim Bekora, and then afterwards, you have the ones that you press with the beam. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ba'avan. Rabbi Yehuda says with stones. Zeh Sheni, that's the second one. Chazar V'Tachan. Then afterwards, you have the third level, which is you get more oil and you grind them up. V'Ta'an Zeh Shlishi. That's the third of the olive oil. Harishon Menorah V'Ashar Menachos. The first one's for the menorah, and the others are for the carbon mincha. Shlishi. What's the third one? Oh, to know that. The third one is you gather them up. You get it from you collect all the rest of the olives that are not yet ripe at the beginning, because they're smaller, and you don't crush them immediately, but rather what you do is you put them into basically a place to hold them. That's called an otino, and that's bebesabad. That's in the press achilaka until basically they begin to decompose. And then you take them up and you dry them out. And that is the first, and only after that, You press them and you put them in the basket. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, not into the basket, but svivos itself. Zeh rishon, that's considered the top olives that you use. Betotim bekora. You press them in a beam. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ba'avanim. And Rabbi Yehuda says you press them with stones. Zeh sheni, and this chazar v'tachan v'ta'an zeh shlishi. So the first ones are the ones that you put in the basket, and then the second ones over. The first ones are the ones that you just put up and they flow down. The second ones are the ones you press in the beam. And Rabbi Huda says you press them with stones. And then the third ones are the ones that you grind again. Harishon, menorah, v'ashar menachos. The first one's for the menorah, and the others are for the government plus. So the Gemara says, Ibalahu migargaro tanan o migalgalo tanan. So that which we learned in the Mishnah, that the first time you gather the olives is as migargaro barosha zayit, isn't migargaro, which means you collect them from here, and a gargar from here and a gargar from here, because they don't all ripen at the same time, and you collect only that which is ripe. Omegagalotana, meaning to say that you leave all the olives in the tree until they're all ripe together. So Tashma the Tanya Shemen Zayis Mizeso, that it says you're supposed to. It says Shemen Zayis Zach Kasislam or Lalos Ner Tamid, and it teaches us that the oil is completely ripe. Mikan Amru Zayis Rishon Migal Galo Birosh Zayis Vikon Sol Beisabad V'Tachano Berachayim V'Nosno Besalan Shemen Ayotze Mimenu Zaya Rishon Tam Bekora Shemen Ayotze Mimenu Zaya Sheni Chazar Barak V'Tachan Tam Zaya Shlishi. But anyway, we see from here that you collect it, and it goes through the steps again. But Harishon Menorah V'Ashar Menachos. And also, so too, the Zayah Sheni, the Zayah Shlishi. Otanov Beisabada Chilaka. Anyway, the Bryce is repeating the Mishnah, but the key at the beginning was that they said Migal Golo. We'll repeat the Bryce. Umala Rosh Agaglo. So what? Umala, then you bring it up to the top of the roof and you make it come in Tamara. You pile it up like in the form of like a date. Actually, a zobumim until the oil flows out. And then konsol beisavav tochnu berachayim and osnam. You put it into the olive press and you grind it up and you put it in baskets. V'shemen yotzim menozaya rishon. The oil flows out from it was the first time. Bakora shemen yotzim menozaya sheni. Press it with the beam. The oil that comes out from it was the second. Parak v'chazer v'tachan. And afterwards you take out the oil and you repress them, and that's shlishi. Harishon and menorah v'ashar menachos. The first is for menorah, the rest is for menachos. He wouldn't grind them up with a mill, but you would crush them with like a mortar. You wouldn't press them with a beam, with stones. You put them around the basket. But anyway, it says in the Bryce, the whole point why we decided this Bryce was that so we see from here that the proper girsa is megalgolo, meaning to say, and when you collect the olives from the tree, you wait until they're all ripe, and only then do you collect. Mar says, okay, fine. But Hagufa Kasha, we had a question. It says Kotesh, it says you press them. Money, who's the one who says you press them with a mortar? That's Rabbi Yehudahi. And then it says Tochasal, and then it says you put them in the basket. Also, Rabban. The Rabban are the ones who say you put them in the basket, not on the sides of the basket. So Gemara says, okay, the author of this price, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda with one about the crushing with the mortar, and holds like the Rabbanon who says you put it into the basket. So now we say the next Mishnah, Harishon, Shebarishon. So the first oil that you collect from the tree, there's nothing better than it. Hasheni Shebarishon, Harishon Shebasheni, the second one of the first collection, and the first one of the second collection, Shavin. They're equivalent in quality. Ashlishi Shebarishon, the third one of the first collection, Vasheni Shebasheni, and the second one of the second collection, Varishon Shebashlishi, and the first one of the first one of the third collection, and Ashlishi Shebasheni, and the third one of the second collection, Vasheni Shebashlishi, and the second one of the third collection, Shavan. They're all equivalent. Ashlishi Shebashlishi, but the third one of the third one, in Lamati, there's nothing worse than it. Abkol Menachos Hayubad, and also all of the Karban Minchos you could have learned in a Kavach Homer from the Avkol Menachos Hayubadin. You could have learned that all the oil of the Menachos from Kavach Homer, Sheitenu Shemen Zayizach, that you should require the pure olive oil. Ma menorah, just like the menorah she'ena la'achila, which you don't eat the menorah. Ton shemen zayizach needs the pure olive oil. Menachos she'ena la'achila, the Karban Minchos, which you're eventually going to be eaten by the Kohanim. Din she'yitenu shemen zayizach. For sure, it should need the pure olive oil. Tamalomar, so the pasuk says, zach kasis lamaor, meaning to say the word lamaor is extra. He could have just said zach kasis lavos ner tamid. So the word to illuminate is extra, and so that's telling us that for the lighting of the menorah you need a pure olive oil. That means the first olive oil that came out of the olive. So we would have said by a kavach homer that the Karban Mincha, which is for eating, should require pure olive oil, and the lighting, which is not for eating, doesn't require pure olive oil. But we say that that's not the case. So the Gemara on the top of Pei Vav Amud Beis challenges this. Do we really want to say? Do we really want to say that this level of olive oil is equal that the shavin? Do we really want to say that on top of Pei Vav Amud Beis that the oil that comes out first after you gather it and the second oil? Do you really want to say that the first olive oil that comes out of the second collection and the second olive oil that comes out of the first collection, Shavin, are they equal? But didn't we say Harishon Menorah Vashar Menachos? But didn't we say the first one is for the menorah, the first collection is for the menorah, and all the rest are for the menachos. So therefore, the second collection from the first harvest, the second oil that comes out of the first collection should really only be for the menachos and not for the olive oil. Amar Menachem Bar Yitzchak, my shavin. What does it say they're equal? It doesn't say that they're equal for the menorah, but shavel menachos, meaning to say that they're equivalent for Karban Mincha. That is to say that even though we say all the oils are kosher for Mincha, nevertheless, you should bring it from the best. And so therefore, if you have the ability to bring from, when you have in front of you the first oil that comes out from the second collection, or the second from the first collection, our Mishnah is saying that they're equivalent with respect to bringing Karban Mincha, and you can bring whichever one you want. But if you have in front of you the third oil that comes out of the first collection, or the first one from the second collection, then you should bring the first one from the second collection, because that's better. Av kol menachos hayu bedin. You could have learned out all the Karban Mincha from a Kavach Homer. Tana Rabbanan, Gemara cites a price. It says with respect to the olive oil, shemen zayizach. You're supposed to use pure olive oil for the menorah. Ein zach elonaki. The word zach means pure. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kasis. What does it mean when it says that it should be crushed? Ein kasis el katush. It means crushed. Yachol yehei zach v'kasis. I might think upasol menachos. I might think that it should be pure and crushed only for the menorah, but it's disqualified for the Karban Mincha. Tamalomar, the pasuk teaches us Yisaron soas baul b'shem and kasis, that we say kasis is kosher for a Karban Mincha, and also the zach, because as we learned, so why does it say in the pasuk for the lighting? We know specifically that it's also kosher for the mincha. Why did it say for the lighting? Because since it's going to cost a lot of money, so therefore, only the purest, only the lighting for the menorah has to be specifically from the purest. The Torah was worried about all the money it would cost if the Torah made everything to be from the purest olive oil. So only the menorah is required. So now we say in this pasuk, Tzavas b'nei Yisrael, Command the children of Israel that they should take the pure olive oil. Amar Mishmol Bar Nachmoni, Elecha, you should take it for yourselves. And the word Elecha is extra. So what does it mean, take for yourself the pure olive oil? Elecha, for you, Veloli. God is saying, take it for you and not for me. Meaning to say, what is Hashem saying to us? Lola ora anitzarach. The light is not for me. You should light the menorah, but it's not. You're not giving me light. The light you're giving is for yourself. When we study Torah, it's not to give Hashem light. It's to give ourselves light in our life. And so too we say, Shulchan bit stuff on the table is in the north, menorah b'daram, and the menorah is in the south. Amar b'Yisrael, Amar b'Lazar, Lola achil anitzarach, Lola or anitzarach. Hashem says, I don't need your food and I don't need your light. So the table is, we're putting bread on the table not for Hashem, but for Hashem to bless us with food. And we light the menorah not to give Hashem light, but for Hashem to bless us with the light. As it says, as another example of this, as it states in Book of Melachim, Mayas labayis chalonei shikufim atumim, that there were made for the Beis Hamikdash windows that were shkufim v'atumim. Shkufim means to say that the narrow part of them was mi bifnim. That normally the narrow part is the opposite. That normally we're going to say that the windows are supposed to take that in the Beis Hamikdash, it got narrower as the windows shone. The part from the outside was narrow, meaning to say that the light was coming out. The bigger space was on the inside, as opposed to normally the bigger space is on the outside. And that's to show that the light was not coming from outside the world into the Beis Hamikdash, but the light was coming from the Beis Hamikdash out to the world. Meaning to say, to show the Beis Hamikdash doesn't need the light from outside. The Beis Hamikdash is what gives the light to the outside. So to michutz parochas, that with respect to the menorah, it says it's outside the curtain. Michutz parochas ha'edus ba'olam moed. Edus hu kol ba'olam she'ashchina shor b'Yisrael. That the parochas, the curtain, is coming to tell us that the menorah is a testimony to the world that Hashem is dwelling with the Jewish people. If you're going to say that Hashem needs the light, all 40 years the Jewish people walked in the wilderness, they went from the light of God. Now, the menorah is testimony that Hashem dwells with Israel. Ma'edusa, how is it a testimony? Amarabba, what is the testimony that the menorah is that Hashem dwells with the Jewish people? This is the miracle that happened every day, says Rava. Zeh ner ma'aravi. This is the western candle of the menorah, which is actually, according to most commentaries, according to Rashi, this is the middle candle. Shenos nimbas shemen kemidas chaversa, meaning to say the middle candle. And why was it called the western one? Because it was turned toward the west, and the amount of oil that was in it was kemidas chaversa, the same amount that went in everybody else, which was a half a lug. And every night, that was the oil that was used to. That was the one that was lit first, and that was the one that was used to light others. Uvaya mitzayim, and that was the last one cleaned out. And so, meaning to say, all the other candles were empty, and this was the one that remained lit. And so, therefore, that was the first one that was lit, and that was the last one to be cleaned out. And so that was the miracle, meaning to say that testified the fact that Hashem's divine presence was with the Jewish people. So now, so since we discussed, as the Mishnah, since we were discussing olive oil, where you get the best oil, now the Mishnah goes where you get the wine for the Nesachim. So Keduchayim Matuin, the place is called Keduchayim Matuin Alfal Yain. They're the best for the wine. Shniel, and the second place was called Beis Rima, and the third place was called Beis Lavan Bahar. The third place was a place called Beis Lavan in the mountain. Ukvar Signa Babika and Kvar Signa in the valley. Kol Aratzos Ayuk Shderos. All the lands are kosher to bring the wine further than the south. El Mikana Yumavin. This is where they brought it ideally because you have to bring it from the best. Emavi and Lomi Beis as well. You're not supposed to bring wine from the field that were fertilized, Lomi Beis Hashlachim, or the irrigated fields. Lomi Masha Nizra Benaim, and also nothing that grew, also not from grapes that you planted other seeds in between them because it's going to be weaker. Vim heavy kosher, and if you brought it, it would be kosher. Obviously, so the Piskei Arid says we're talking about grapevines that were planted by non-Jews because if Jews planted it, it's koyim, and you're not allowed to have benefit from them. And so the Rashba or Milchus Rashba says, well, no, even if a non-Jew plants it amongst the vineyard, it's going to be kosher. It's going to be a problem because it's prohibited to have benefit as the Chama made such a xer on it. And so therefore, the Milchus Rashba says we're talking about that it was planted amongst the grapevines, but far enough away so that it wasn't koyim. Okay. Vim heavy kosher. If you brought it from these grapevines, it was kosher. Emavian listion. You don't bring for wine from listion, which is wine that was very sweet on account of the sun, because they basically planted the grapevines opposite the sun. So then the wine is not the best. But maybe kosher. Emavian yashan. You're not allowed to bring from old grapes from last year. Some say it's okay. Emavian lo matok. You're not allowed to bring sweet wine. Ushan. And also wine that was made from grapes that you put in the smoke in order to sweeten them because they were too bitter. And not from wine that was cooked in order to sweeten them. And this is also going to get into a big problem of yayin b'vushel, which is, we see from here, wasn't kosher for Korban Menachos. How can we use it for Kiddush? The Mehevi Pasul, and if you brought it, it's disqualified. You're not allowed to bring it from the grapevines that are hanging on like pegs, because that is also not the best wine. Element Aragilios, this is from grapevines that are attached basically on the ground. They're not suspended. And also, you also have to bring it from the grapevines that are dug, meaning to say that that they dig around them twice a year, because such grapevines are the best. Rule codes and also that after you squeeze out the grapes, you want to make sure it doesn't get ruined. So what should you have to be careful not to do? Well, codes and also you don't put it in big jugs because that ruins it. But rather in small barrels. You don't fill up the barrel until it's all the way to the top. If you want to the smell to waft through it and throughout the barrel and not go outside. And maybe min pia. You don't bring it from the top. Because that top has like stuff that floats at the top, which is no good. And lo mishuleh, not from the bottom, because you get the dregs. Ella maybe shalisha me'emtza. You bring it from 1/3 of the barrel until the middle. And so the way to do that is you make a little spigot in the middle to get it from the middle. Bodek. And how do you check that if the wine is good? Gizbar Yoshev, the Gabbai, the treasurer, is sitting there. What does he do? He's sitting next to the barrel. Va'kana biado, and the measuring utensil is in his hand. And then what does he do? Zara kagir, when the like I don't know what it's called, but the crud of the wine begins to go out. He kishbikana, he knocks with a stick against the wine, and he knocks with a stick, and therefore he says, close it up. And so therefore, and so that will be an indication that he got out all the bad parts. And the reason why I wouldn't speak is because speaking is bad for the wine. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda Omar sheyesh bo wine that has sheyesh bo kamochem, that has this rod on it, apostle is disqualified. Shenemar to me mim yulachem umin chasan. It has to be pure. Mim yulachem v'niskehem, meaning to say that the nisachim have to be pure, without any blemish, just like the sacrifices. And this excludes the wine that still has the crud on it. And we know, going back to this idea, that the Gemara is going to tell us that the speaking is going to be bad for the wine. So you have to be careful. If speaking is bad for wine, kal chomer, how it's bad for the neshama if we speak improperly. Okay, we'll stop over here. This is today's daf. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.